This past weekend started my 3 weekends of racing, goal-oriented racing. Actually, my first and third weekends are the goal races, and the second weekend is more just to keep me tweaked. With these being my goal races, that means that I had built up to this. And so what I'm doing during this 3 weekends is not to screw anything up. So other than racing on the weekends, and that's just one of the weekdays that I'm one of the weekend days that I'm racing, I'm doing just endurance, except for Wednesdays where I'm doing these Zwift crits. And because I'm an old guy, I'm doing these Zwift Anti-Sandbagging crits. I'm hoping they offer a little more protection from sandbaggers than the other crits do. So when I look at the results on this crit, and I see everybody's watts per kilogram and their power, in this particular race, there was no one that should have been a category A. I also like to take a look at everyone's ages after these races, because I'm by far the oldest guy at 66, so I can see what the overall age of the group is. Now, a lot of people didn't list their ages, but of the 20, let's see, I think there's 22 people that were in this race, I saw that there were no 20s, there were 4 30-somethings, 3 40-somethings, and 3 50-somethings. No one in the 60s except me, and I'm 66. In my training for my goal races, and these are district championship races, so the one I had this last Saturday was a district champion road race. I came in 6th in that one, and in a couple of weeks I'll have the district championship criteriums, and I'll be competing against 65 to 69-year-olds. So doing other races with younger groups, doing these Zwift crits is nothing but an advantage for me. Before I forget, if you want to take a look at the district road race that I did, I have a video of that out, and if I remember, I'll post it in the description below. Otherwise, just look for a video that's titled District Road Race with commentary, attacks, and dumbassery, and you'll understand the dumbassery once you see it. It had been some months since I've done a Zwift crit, until I started doing them about 3 weeks ago on Wednesdays. So this is the third crit since then. And it had been enough time where they had downgraded me from a B to a C, and they had listed me as almost a B when I started doing these crits again about 3 weeks ago. After today's crit, I did well enough, I guess, where they moved me back up to a B. The previous 2 Wednesday crits I did as a category B, regardless. The Bs are a challenging category for me. Usually what happens is I lose contact with the main group right around the halfway mark. This last week, I made it to the 5th of 8 laps. Starting back up again with his Zwift crits 2 weeks ago, I had a tough time in that race. The Zwift crit the following week was a little bit easier. Now in this race, it was even easier yet. I was able to show a lot more control in my positioning. I wasn't dropping back a lot. I wasn't overshooting the front a lot. I was riding wheels usually like I should be doing. It was still tough, but it was easier. One of the things I noticed is it was easier for me to spend my time in the top 10 usually, or right around the middle of the pack. Again, we numbered about 22. I also noticed on one of the toughest sections on this course for me, which is the brick section, the brick uphill section, and let's jump there now, that I didn't seem to have as hard a time as I did the previous weeks. I also noticed, and now this I could be wrong because I have that whole hypoxia thing, and I'll know more once I see this video all the way through, is that once we get to the top like we are here, that people usually kept power on instead of letting up a bit. So you can see that there's a couple people out there in front, and so everyone's just trying to reconnect with those guys. So yeah, we all strung out, and this is how it usually happened. Fortunately, I was able to deal with that, where 2 weeks ago, I would have been off the back a lot sooner than halfway through the race. Same thing with this next section coming up, the rolling section. What I usually do in that section is that I apply power on the uphill, and then I lessen that power on the downhill. And I do that for the 3 or 4 times depending on what's needed. In this race, it's always on. So you can see how we're strung out. We have some really strong people in this race, and they are the ones that are pushing it out in the front. They're trying to establish that break early. Now I'm actually toward the back. I talked earlier about usually being in the top 10. Well, that's when we usually grouped up. But now we're just strung out, and I'm looking at lap 2 of 8, And I'm thinking that, man, I gotta at least get to my usual dying point, which is going to be 4 of 8. So these guys lit up. Somebody cried uncle, and everyone else cried uncle along with them, and that gave me a chance to get myself back up toward the front. Now, in this case, I overshot this, and this is not what I want. So right now, I'm just pedaling easy. So you see, my wattage is pretty low. I'm at about 3.0. So this has been, I guess, a pretty fast race. Let's again jump to just before the brick section, lap 3. And I've been holding myself in the top 10 pretty much, and so I wanted to come in that way going into this brick section. Now, I have a power-up, and I'm not using it yet. Ordinarily, I would use my power-ups during that brick section, but this is an aero power-up, and so I wanted to, actually I started using it here because I was pretty tired coming up that. We went up that pretty fast. I held my position, but it cost me. It cost me some bananas, so to speak. So obviously, again, we weren't letting up over the top of that. And there's a couple strong guys out there that's causing everybody to chase. And fortunately, I'm on a wheel, and I'm sticking to the wheel because last week I'd get onto a wheel, but I just couldn't hold it. So I'm sticking to that wheel. Now we're hitting the roller section again. And again, I have to just be on all the time. I just can't, let up just a little bit to get a little bit of recovery. But fortunately, those at front are running out of legs a little bit, and so they're dialing back, and we're slowly regrouping. I'm hoping that's what's happening now, is that there's going to be a split in which I'll be in the front split. But that may be a lot to ask. So now I am coming into the 4th lap. And once I finish the 4th lap, then basically I've met what I usually do in terms of surviving with the front group until I get to that second half. I'm jumping again to before the brick section. I was able to position myself toward the front again, and that took some doing because we're now going faster, and I was actually toward the back, and I was able to get myself toward the front. Now you'll see that I've had a drafting boost, and so I'm using that because I'm needing all the help I can get. And I went from toward the front, and now I'm about the middle of the pack. Actually, if you look at the data on the right-hand graphics, I am toward the back of the pack. The split has happened. We have quite a few people that are like 30 and 40 seconds behind me. So those guys are going a lot faster than I am. I'm on a wheel, and I'm trying to stay on that wheel. It's getting a bit tough, and it's looking like I am again going to be dying out about the halfway mark. And I know it's looking like that I'm not going to be able to actually make it to the halfway mark connected with the group. In fact, I'm looking at the data on the right-hand side again. I want to see how much of a buffer I have to work with if I find myself alone. I am also looking at those 2 in front of me, and I'm focusing on that first one. If I get up to him and work with him, that'll give me a much better chance to stay away from those chasers. But more importantly, it'll make a game out of it. I'll still get a chance to race, as opposed to just hanging on in a solo fashion. And lastly, what we do versus what the pack up there does, it may give this a chance to reconnect. So I'm still thinking that maybe we could reconnect. I have jumped 2+ laps later to the beginning of the brick section on lap 6. And William Duden, the person I've been with, has been pulling the whole way. He's stronger than I am. I have not been able to come around him. We just caught somebody, and that somebody's going to get back on us. And finally, William lets up a little bit, and I go to the front. But he's a strong guy. The only reason I'm at the front is because he slowed up finally. So now it's a group of 3 of us. I'm jumping forward again, this time at the beginning of the last lap. These guys have been pulling, and I have not been pulling. Not necessarily by choice. These guys are just stronger than I am. So it's rare that I can even try to get to the front. There were times during these last 2 laps where I was thinking that I just couldn't hang on to these guys, and I just had to back off. And I'd look at the graphics on the right, and that chase group now is at about a minute plus behind us. So they won't be able to catch me, but I'm not going to improve if I die off when I don't need to die off. So I am still hanging with these guys. I still have my arrow power up, and my plan is to use it when I am toward the end of the rolling section. Now, if I was stronger, what I would do is try to get away with maybe zero point 0.3 miles to go, that type of thing. But these guys are pretty strong, and we do pick up another person. So the last place in our three-man group is well, right now I'm in 13th place, and I'm between these guys. The good thing is that I'm not thinking about, gee, if I can just finish with these guys, I'll be good. And don't get me wrong, that would be good. But I'm thinking about, how can I beat these guys? And that's a good sign. Clearly, I'm the weakest one of the three of us. And I guess the four of us, somebody had a ghost power up. And looks like William up there, he's the one in the green jersey. It looks like he's attacking, so he's going for like about half mile to go, and that's a smart move. If I was strong like him, that's what I would do. So now I'm hanging on the back of this guy, and I'm trying not to lose his draft like I have now. I guess a 2 meters separation, and the other guy that's there, he's taking off after him. So now I have a chance to see if I can beat this guy right here. As we head into the roller section, job 1 for me is to stay connected to him, stay on his wheel. And job 2 is to hit that arrow power up at the right time, whatever the right time is, so I can go past him. While we're waiting for the finish, what I'm doing other than racing on the weekends and this Zwift crit on Wednesdays is I'm going easy to moderate endurance. Okay, so now I've hit the arrow boost. I have separated from him, and now the question is, am I going to be able to stay separated? He may have one hell of a kick at the end. He may have an arrow boost, or he may have both. So I'm standing, I'm going as far as I can, I'm near my max. I'm looking at the numbers at the bottom to see where he is, and unfortunately, I got there before he did. All right, there you have it, 14th place. Continuing to improve. And that's the important part. Look for that District Road Race Championship video. It is a doozy. You won't be disappointed. And I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. And always remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.